Hey folks, it's Sam, and I'm here talking about the full moon in Aquarius in Purva Bhadra Nakshatra that's coming up. We have this in happening on, you see here, September the 10th, 2022. Will be happening early in the morning on September the 10th, 2022. And it's in, as I say, Purva Bhadra Nakshatra. This is really bringing out a lot of qualities of this heart-centered community. That's one of the biggest themes that we would be seeing now. The sign of Aquarius is very much about reflecting back the power of Leo, which is like the power of the kingdom, the power in your own life, like your capacity to achieve and accomplish and have a strong center of existence, but yet it's really meaningless without the culture around you. I don't just mean the social culture, but I mean even the family culture and the other people in your life. All of these things are very important in the sign of Aquarius. And as you see, we have this lunation cycle here. And this lunation cycle, when the sun is opposite when the moon is opposite the sun, we have this connection to reflecting back, feeling deeply this reflection and this reflecting back, what our life and those power structures in our life are all about. And so this is really what we're going to be talking about. As you can see here, the sun is here in Leo sign, and the moon is over here in Aquarius. So again, that's also based on the fact that you start the zodiac here at 0 Aries, where Ashwini and Aries are aligned. And then by the time you get around here, you not only have Aquarius starting here, but then you have this nakshatra of Purva Bhadra Pada. And one of the other things that's going on is right now, it's very apparent that there's so much, happening in our world, and these lunation cycles especially really bring out a lot of our sort of patterning and psychological sort of habits. The interplay between the sun and the moon is so important, and especially your psychological nature. And your psychology is really set by the moon. It's really set by those qualities of the moon, and the planets that arrange themselves around the moon really show your psychological nature. And so not just individually, but when we have these lunation cycles, this is why we really analyze things like the full moon. Regardless of if you were born near a full moon or not, you're always dealing with your own psychology as well. And so, for example, you can see here that the moon just passed over Saturn, right? So Saturn is, after the moon has passed over Saturn here, which is happening as I'm recording this now, on September 7th, we feel that intensity and that heaviness and that emotional pressure. Then the moon keeps going into Aquarius, and then after that, it's going to go into Pisces and be joined Jupiter. So again, like if someone is being born now at this time, this would really be their emotional patterning. They would have Saturn before the moon, Jupiter after the moon, Mars in an angle from the moon, Venus opposite the moon. And these things would also really show the nature of the person's psychology. And one of the things I'm doing right now, just real quick, is I'm also doing some readings based on the psychology, that sort of emotional patterning. I just dropped the link in there real quick. And I also put together a very quick little presentation while I take a drink here. You can watch that. Astropsychology using moon yogas. Good mental health revolves around receiving and being open to life through the heart, feeling what you have received in real time, then integrating those new emotional experiences as part of a coherent identity. So planets before the moon, with the moon, and after the moon show this capacity in the birth chart. Also, planets and angles from the moon show the stability. So let's say that someone has Mars before the moon in their natal chart and they have Jupiter in the 7th house or in an angle from the moon. That would show a very unique psychological patterning that really started from childhood and goes throughout your entire life. You would just be evolving within this set astropsychology. So if you would like me to interpret your chart based on these very clear astrological indicators and understand your psychology better, go to VedicAstrology.com. So I put that together just so that people can also see it kind of laid out very quickly rather than talk about it very long. But it is something that is very important, that we are all patterned psychologically by the chart. And this is a thing that is all pervasive throughout your entire life. Your psychology, think about it, you still feel the same way you felt when you were a child. Now, of course, you manage it better and it's evolved, but your psychology is evolving within that psychology and psychological profile, which is set. So planets with the moon, after the moon, before the moon, in angles from the moon, really show that. So you want to keep this in mind even when you hear this forecast about the full moon and whatnot, and this reflection of Leo back, or this reflection of Aquarius back onto Leo, is very much a way that your psychology is interacting with the psychology now. And this this is a collective psychological reading, right? Because we're all going through these paths collectively. But individually, you experience your psychology in a different way. So with the sun in Leo right now, and you see he's at 23 when we have this full moon on September the 10th, it means he's been in Leo for 23 days, right? So that means that for 23 days, we've been working on this lesson, this life lesson of feeling our power, feeling our strength, feeling that center piece of our existence as a being of light that can share and that also has the power and must find the power and generate the power within in order to live a life of meaning, and all of the things and people in our life that fill us with light are really the reflections back. But we're the source, and we have to find that source. Now, again, it in some ways, Leo energy often is portrayed as being somewhat egotistical, narcissistic, and all. But that's just the lower quality. That's when we don't understand our true self. That's why Leo is very much also about the divine ancestors and the great teachings. Go back and watch my video on Leo, on this Leo cycle, and I talk about that in great detail because the new moon in Leo was in Purva Nakshatra, which is about the divine ancestors and the source of our wisdom. Again, that was like 2 weeks ago because sun and moon came together over here at about 10 degrees, which is in Purva Nakshatra. Then 15 days, no, about 8 degrees. Then about 15 days later, we'll have the full moon, and then it's opposite and reflecting back. So we always have to see the full moon in context of the sun cycle. So this full moon in Aquarius, sometimes it's falsely said, oh, this is a great time to begin blah, blah. The full moon is not the begin. The begin part is the sun and moon coming together. The new moon is the beginning of the cycle. The full moon is the halfway point where now we're reflecting back, and we're reflecting by also seeing the reflection of others coming back into our life, how well we are, let's say, projecting or illuminating or sharing that light within based on the reflection that comes back from others. So, for example, this is how you can tell whether or not you're being an egoistic monster, an egoistic Leo monster, or you're being a gracious, not a king, but a gracious source of power and light to others. What are others saying? What is your kingdom saying? What's being reflected back to you? Or is it being reflected back to you that, first of all, maybe you don't have any power, and people are trying to encourage you to come on, you're more powerful, right? This is one type of reflection. The opposite reflection is, whoa, you're not that powerful. You're just acting like a raging narcissistic egomaniac, okay? And people are reflecting that back, or something in between, hopefully, where people reflect back gratitude and you feel good about the reflection that comes back. Are you constantly battling your quote image? You know, do you, you know, and sort of like rebelling against it, but secretly wishing everyone would just acknowledge how amazing you are and stop criticizing you or whatever it might be? See, a lot of people online, you know, figures who are, whether they, you know, they tell themselves they're doing good and that they're following the light and putting the light out there, but you can see there's so much of their own ego in it, and that's the reflection that comes back. So many public figures, for whatever good that they are doing or might think they're doing, they also do it in an extremely egoistic way. Now, and you can speak the truth and be blunt and direct and empowered, and then empower, you know, because you're feeling empowered and humane and connected to the collective. Again, this is the thing. Leo is the empowered individual, and Aquarius is connected to the collective and the higher good. You can do both. And you'll have the confidence and you'll have the this or that. But you'll also, when you have to, let's say, say things that might seem controversial or might seem like they're offensive to others, they won't come off that way because there's a genuine humility. Again, this is a big keyword with Aquarius is humility. It's ruled by Saturn. And again, Saturn is where we're humble. We're not just full of our own, you know, we're not just full of our own pride and our own, you know, grandiosity, where we're not just trying to prove to others how we're right, everybody else is wrong. And even if we do, again, you know, frankly, myself as a teacher and someone who speaks a lot as well, I have to say a lot of things that sometimes can rub people the wrong way. Sometimes they probably even do, but most of the time they don't, because I'm fair because it's sincere. Like, for example, about an astrology method or this or that. I even talked about like the zodiac earlier or whatever. I'm totally open to whatever people want to do, right? And have genuine respect for however they do it or whatever it might be. But the truth and the facts are also there, and you can't just not pay attention to those things. You could do whatever you want. Like, for example, other things with astrology, like I talk about outer planets and if they're in the Vedic system or these kinds of things, which again, sometimes people, hardly anyone does get offended because I'm not offensive, because I honor whatever anybody is doing. It's not as if you can't get a good answer using a tropical zodiac or outer planets or whatever. People can do what they want, but there's also still facts. Like, for example, the outer planets are not part of the Indian system. The Indian Vedic astrology system works perfectly well without them. Trust me, it really does. Doesn't mean you can't use them, but they're not part of the system. And if you don't learn it, let's say, you know, properly all the way around, like with the yogas and the rulerships and the dignities and the harmonic charts and the nakshatras and all of the stuff that's in Vedic astrology, if you shortcut all of that, but then go crazy on all the outer planets, let's say, well, you're not really doing it the way it's intended. It doesn't mean it isn't right. It doesn't mean you can't do it. It doesn't mean it doesn't help people. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means literally the specific thing. And I have many friends who we've had these discussions, and it's always mutually respectful. But again, I could approach these things in a totally different way. Oh, it's brr, and come down with the wrath of God upon people. And then it would come off like, whoa, you're not the only one who's right. These people are doing good work, blah, blah, blah. So it's all in the presentation. And what comes through is that the sincerity of your words and your language and whatnot is also very important, because that is usually conveyed very clearly, especially if someone talks a lot and you see them in the public a lot. Again, these things are very important as we talk about things like Leo and Aquarius, because again, Leo and Aquarius are very much about things like career. Leo is often how we're seen, how we present ourselves. Aquarius is like the public. So you as an individual interacting with the public is also very much seen here, and you can really learn a lot about how these things work and how you even look at other leaders or public figures around this Leo Aquarius principle. People that are direct and intelligent and forthright, but also honest, and they can do honest, if you want to say, criticism. It's not criticism of people, it's just getting it right. It's a criticism of maybe things that aren't understood properly or whatever, and avoiding the people and the naming and the calling out. This is where you can see when someone gets goes overboard. And I'm saying this in your life as well. A way to, when you can see and feel that you're empowered without being a kind of toxic, narcissistic egomaniac, is because you're not making things personal. You're not calling out other people as individuals, as in this kind of rigid, I'm right, everybody else is wrong kind of thing. And you're not just bringing, this sort of wrath upon others. When that's the case, then you'll wind up having a good relationship with the kingdom, whether it's, business or personal life and whatnot. So that's really the first thing to understand. And I'm going to take a little break here, take a drink, and you watch this quick update. Please like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell on YouTube to get notified of new videos and live streams. Also, leave a comment, share it with others on Facebook, Twitter, or other social media platforms. So as you've seen, I put together a few of these little things because sometimes I stop and take drinks and do all this stuff. I thought it would be better to condense these things like that, and I need to give my voice a little break. So anyway, please do like, share, and subscribe if you appreciate this, these types of things. Now, the other thing to really understand is that this is in a nakshatra of Purva Bhadra. Purva Bhadra is a nakshatra that exists here. It starts at 20 degrees of Aquarius and runs to 3 degrees and 20 minutes of Pisces. Now, again, in keeping with the Vedic alignment of the zodiacs with the sky, sorry. Again, what I said at the beginning, once you nail the zodiac signs to the nakshatras, then Ashwini, the first nakshatra, and Aries begin here. Then by the time you come around, you have 23 degrees of Aquarius aligns with the nakshatra of Purva Bhadra. And this is the nakshatra that is the bridge between Aquarius and Pisces. So you can see in this nakshatra of Purva Bhadra this connection between the society and culture and those things that are related to Aquarius and the transcendent cosmic qualities of Pisces, where we're not of this earth anymore, where we are, no longer even working on a societal level or a cultural level. Instead, we're working on a more transcendent level. So again, the thing to understand is that Aquarius is this last stage of humanity trying to, have a foothold here, have a place that says, okay, yes, this world, I'm going to save the world, and I'm this universal person in the world. Pisces is like, well, actually not. You're not even of this world. Because in many ways, you as an individual, the highest things that you imagine that have to do with Aquarius, you as an individual person in the world, you as a powerful individual is Leo, but that powerful individual with the love of everyone, like everyone loves you. You're a source of love and light and a beacon of uplifting. And you actually, what if you could save the world? What if you could fix all the problems in the world? Like, as you define them. What if you had the power to fix all the problems with humanity? We all would love that, because And again, that's very Aquarius utopian ideal. It's very much what Aquarius is about. It's about that utopic ideal, that heart-centered, utopic source of humanity and sense of community is really what this full moon is about, being in Aquarius. Again, because it's that feeling of connecting all of us together in one big, kumbaya world. We feel how it's not that in some ways. We feel how the world is not that. We can be feeling a lot of this disconnect now in the way we hope the world is or was, and what the world actually is. Because again, with the Leo, as much as we try to, give all of our power to make it beautiful, there's only so much we can do. And in Aquarius, we have to make peace with all of our political enemies and social enemies and all the things that we try to fight to change in this world, about this world. Purva Bhadra Nakshatra especially is where we transition into letting that go. Because no matter how much the world is, how great the world is, it's not the real ultimate reality. And so when someone has planets in Pisces and powerful energy in Pisces, they understand this and they are able to make peace with the tragedy of the world. And we live in sort of tragic times, and it can really, again, sort of deflate us emotionally and psychologically at times. That whole kind of tragedy around this is why we have a lot of emotional stress and trauma. One of the biggest things even that happened since COVID and these times now, these mental health crises, even if someone's not having a literal mental health crisis, it's very stressful times. The last 5-6 years have been incredibly, stressful and divisive all around the world. And it's a very scary time. And again, this is why we, have a connection to, that our mental and psychological and emotional resilience and understanding is so important now, that we can connect with those, that anchor of our existence and our consciousness. And again, much of that comes through the moon. This is why I decided to do some of these moon yoga readings, is so that people can really understand their psychological and emotional patterning. Because again, just think about it, even though you're not the same as you were when you were a kid, it still feels some version of the same, more evolved, but the same kind of tendencies. And so ultimately, that's why the moon is that cosmic connection, not just to this world, but to the other world. And it's through meditation and spiritual practices that you dissolve that separate identity of this world, and you dissolve all of the disparate, fragmented, worldly emotional experiences, because emotions are fragmented experiences. The heart and the moon part of you wants to feel whole. You want to feel whole. And what do you want to feel whole with? Again, it's easy to say everybody and project it onto other people, but no, you want to feel whole within yourself, where you're not separate, where you don't feel like you're just this separate body and this separate mind and all these separate people and all these, and the way you experience that is through your emotions, through your separate emotions, that sense of separateness that you have, that keeps you feeling other than your true cosmic self, where you can sink into that cosmic oneness. And again, that's really what Pisces is all about. Pisces is that connection to the cosmic oneness. And again, this is why Pisces is also related to things like meditation and surrender and letting go. You've heard me talk about this a lot since Jupiter went into Pisces. This is a huge time now, an opportunity for us all to surrender and let go and connect. And the thing we're surrendering and letting go is this separate, fragmented emotional state. So again, you can see with this full moon even here, and it's in Purva Bhadra, the nakshatra between these two signs, where our, where our universal person nature, who is like, okay, I'm still some person of the world, but I'm like one with all humanity. That's who I am. I'm one individual at one with all humanity. And again, it's sort of the case, but ultimately your true nature is not even that. You're one with all humanity, but not on the physical level, not in a physical world, on a in the cosmic world. In the cosmic world, there is no distinction. There is just one sense of joy, peace, oneness, etc. And so I'll just drop the link there again really quick about the moon yogas. If you did want to understand your patterning and psychology, it's very easy to look at these things astrologically and really make a very coherent case for what your psychology is and how to really understand it. So this full moon often brings out these lunar ideas, our psychology becomes very urgent around full moons in these, at these moments of these lunation cycles. So that's definitely something also. Please find me on YouTube at Sam Jeppy, Vedic Astrology Teacher. On there since 2007, thousands of hours of classes. Also on Facebook at Astrology Teacher, tons of articles updated regularly. And I'm on Instagram at Vedic Astrology 108, ongoing updates and interaction. So again, this psychology is very much the anchor of your existence. And as we get into these lunation cycles, it's that polarity between that sun in Leo, very much this truthful, powerful identity that says, I'm the important one. I'm the one that matters. And the reflection back from Aquarius, where people reflect back like, oh, okay, well, how is that powerful identity actually working out? Is it actually, are you actually being seen as this, again, like sort of crazy, raging narcissist, or are you seen as this powerful, source of light, or are you just kind of shrinking from the, battle? And one of the things that happens with this full moon here, the full moon in Aquarius, you could really see all of those. Notice in your life how much you feel like you're not really embodying your power and what it actually feels like instead. Like, are you feeling stressed that you're not making that difference in the world that you imagine you could, right? Because that's that's really what Aquarius is doing, is it's making you feel into the collective response that you get, and also makes you notice whether or not you feel like you have the power to actually do anything to help the world or to get your vision out. And notice how these things are so connected. This is why all sign oppositions are really like reflections of the other. Aquarius is like a reflection of Leo. Leo is like a reflection of Aquarius. And so you have this, again, sort of like mirror reflection that is sort of checking in to say, okay, your power is either not being used at all or it's being misused. It's like, whoa, let me recalibrate here. Why do half the people that I know, or why do so many people like not want to talk to me or hang out with me? Or again, I look at a couple people that I've known, especially on social media. Some of them have really spun out over these last couple years particularly around all the conspiracies and stuff. And again, I don't want to get into that. I would never say that who the people are or whatever, but people that I know online who are in the wellness or influencer community or astrology and whatever, and how extreme some of them have been in their kind of entitlement to just be a total raging big mouth, and like with all of, especially with all of the, the politics behind it and how hard it is. And again, I'm not saying this to insult them necessarily. It's not, I mean, I'm not praising it, but it's just what I notice is I know how hard it must be, not how hard it must be, how hard it is. Not that I've ever been received like that, but even just to have like half the people now just think you're a total lunatic maniac is not good. It's not a good place to be in. And yet we have a choice when that happens to change course a little bit, to refocus, to listen to the message that's coming back, or to just double and triple down even more. No, everybody's wrong. My version of reality or astrology or whatever it is the only way you can see it. And then everything else or everyone else is just worthy of being ridiculed and called out and named and shamed and all of that. Again, that kind of toxic behavior, that's an extreme. But even again, in your life, noticing where, or maybe you're afraid to like even speak up a little bit, even like I did earlier. And sometimes that's hard too. It's hard for people to do that, to even speak and say something like, like I said earlier about different ways to practice. For me, it's like my obligation. I feel like that's just my nature, is to say these things that are true. But there's never been oh, they're terrible people or it's this or that, because that's just not how I see it. But that would come through. But there also could be parts in your life where you're trying to not build a kingdom, but you're trying to get ahead, like in your work and in your career, and express yourself at the next level. Some of that is also about doing this, like saying what you think needs to be corrected, taking on issues and conflicts without being aggressive and mean or nasty. Some people just shrink from it entirely, and they don't have any conviction behind what they're doing, and they're trying too much to make sure nobody disagrees. There's nobody who doesn't like me, right? No one is against me. Again, if you stand for nothing, then you stand for nothing. Then that's also going to be a big failing at this time. So I'm saying this so you can see the range of potential. The range of potential is, being too much of that or not enough. And we're feeling it now in the Aquarius full moon. This is where you actually feel how much you're showing up, how you're showing up, whether or not you go too far and get into battles and it's just egoistic power struggles with others. People hear me talk about Leo. I say this all the time. That's why I say it, because it's a fine line at times. By the way, I have had people who want nothing more than to get me into internet feuds with them. Some quite a lot, and called me out by name and made a whole bunch of hooey about it. I wasn't even tempted to do it, because I'm not going to turn something, issues or whatever, into an internet feud. I don't care what they say, because it's just not why I do it. It's not why I do my work. There's just no reason to do it. But again, you probably seen and can notice I'm a fighter. I don't shrink from the issue, but the personality, the personal stuff is not the driver. So again, these are things that we don't know this about ourselves until we get in that position. And no, it's also not good to be called out or whatever it might be and have someone say this, because you got to, and then when you don't respond to certain things, oh, he's afraid to respond or whatever. And all of that's what goes on. But this is the crazy internet call out culture we have now. I'm not saying this. I just use these things as examples when they come up. I don't plan to say these things when I talk. I'm just speaking off the top of my head, really, but to exemplify these things, because these are like my experiences of it. But we all have our experiences of it. And what I usually see is people who are not going too far, but they don't go far at all because they're afraid. They're afraid that one person might say something about them. And many people who I do readings for now and who want to have careers in making a contribution, even like this or something, who want to have careers in these sorts of things, I tell them, I'm like, look, you found out about me because I use these platforms, because I get up and say these, because I make these videos about astrology that I love and this and that. Do you think it's all praise? No. You got to develop a little bit of a tough skin here, because there's always going to be people that don't like you and that are going to, yell at you publicly or say things. But you have to see, how much do you care about the issue? How much Leo energy do you have? So it's how much Leo energy, power, vision do you have in response to the Aquarius. There's a certain amount that's going to come back from the community that's not going to feel good, but is it in alignment with your vision? And what's that ratio? And by the way, I look at the ratio on my videos and stuff too sometimes when people don't like, especially when I talk about things that people feel are very controversial, particularly the politics and stuff like that. When I just say the things that are happening, like, there was an insurrection or blah, 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 blah. And again, all of the the ratio, even of the dislikes, right, are like never anything under 95%. Mostly the worst it's ever been on any videos has been about 85% or something. It's very rarely ever been where I'm just, because I know I'm not doing it from a hateful place. But you have to tell the truth, especially when I talk about the transits that are happening. Like, I could talk about all that stuff right now, even with the politics and stuff, but I don't really care about that right now. I don't feel like talking about that. But with the happening in the world and the this and the that and the who's got the power and who doesn't and all the stuff that's been happening. But if I start talking about that, then suddenly some people will get upset. And sometimes I mention it, sometimes I don't. But the point is that looking at the message that's coming back from your community, from your world, and or are you able to show up at all, or are you just kind of hiding and not saying anything because of drawing attention to yourself, but yet you still want to make a difference? You're still trying to have, like, an entrepreneur, like have a voice that cares about a certain issue or subject, but you're afraid to draw attention to yourself. Again, that's the negative Leo energy, and you'll be feeling that on this Aquarius full moon. So all of you that are aspiring to be stepping up more in your life and taking on greater responsibility, having more impact, but you're kind of afraid of the stage a little bit. Again, the stage is Leo, where a person will get up and, hey, look at me. I'm the one bringing the power out. But again, there's always the possibility of abusing the power and going too far, like I'm saying, where you lose connection, where you're not humble anymore. And again, Saturn comes to humble the Leo. And again, that's what Aquarius is, especially the Aquarius energy, is to humble the Leo. How? Well, the king thinks he's king, but the king doesn't have numbers. When the citizens rise up and start yelling back at the king, it should humble the king. Go, okay, okay, okay. Again, that's in a larger context, but it's in your life as well. So these are big themes right now. This reflection coming back to you from others, or even if it's not coming back from others, maybe because you don't have a platform that's even big enough. Or again, you don't have to have a platform, like that's the standard of success in this world, but you're shrinking from your responsibilities so much so that you're not even in the game, quote, in that game. Now, again, I'm not saying someone has to be. I'm saying these are the things that are coming up. These are the themes. But everybody has some power in their life, and everybody's getting some reflection back, even if it's just their family. Some people go to work, they have no power, they come home, they're the king of the house, and that's great. And they nurture the family, and the reflection that comes back is fantastic. Some people come back, and them being the king of the household or whatever, and they're kicking the dog and abusing the family, and that's the reflection coming back. So wherever you're empowered in this world, you're now getting that reflection back on this full moon in Aquarius. And again, you want to see these things as co-creative principles. They're not separate. They're not, they're not, they're not, like Aquarius is over there in space somewhere and Leo is over there somewhere. No, this is a process. And again, some of the other things, Saturn, the moon is passing over Saturn now, so we're feeling quite serious about these things. Then right after the full moon, moon's going to go into Pisces with Jupiter. So notice right after the full moon, the capacity to connect and to sink into and surrender to the highest wisdom that is there in your life, and to surrender to that, especially the spiritual practices and whatnot. The other thing, though, is that the moon is opposite Venus right now, so you could feel a lot of support from others as well. You may be feeling very strong and connected to others, and really willing to look at your interactions and your relationships with others now, with Venus reflecting back from Leo. But again, Venus in Leo is also quite fiery, right? And this nakshatra of Purva Bhadra is symbolized by a cot, and it's like a deathbed. It's where the ego sort of goes to die. It's like the death of the ego here. And the last vestiges of the ego is in this illusion that, yes, I'm this person of the world. I'm this individual who is part of the collective. That's still the ego, because in Purva Bhadra, it goes from I'm an individual in the collective to no, I'm not. In Pisces, it's like I'm a transcendent consciousness beyond this world, this body, this collective illusion that I'm under, this sort of collective, illusion or delusion that I'm under. So those are a few things to really keep in mind, a few final thoughts. And, I hope this was helpful. I'm going to let you see one more time the thing about the Vedic astrology, the moon yogas, because it's quite an experience. If you did want to have me look at your chart, the Vedic Astro Moon yogas that really show your patterning and your habits, planets, like for example here, like I said, planets before the moon, after the moon, and angles from the moon, shows an emotional anchoring and process that is very deep and transcendent of your even a lot of your capacity for control and whatnot. This is the way your pattern, this is your emotional patterning. And if you want to get greater insight into it, then I would, then I am doing some limited reading. Please find me on YouTube at Sam Jack. Astropsychology using moon yogas. Good mental health revolves around receiving and being open to life through the heart, feeling what you have received in real time, then integrating those new emotional experiences as part of a coherent identity. So planets before the moon, with the moon, and after the moon show this capacity in the birth chart. Also, planets and angles from the moon show the stability. So let's say that someone has Mars before the moon in their natal chart and they have Jupiter in the 7th house or in an angle from the moon. That would show a very unique psychological patterning that really started from childhood and goes throughout your entire life. You would just be evolving within this set astropsychology. So if you would like me to interpret your chart based on these very clear astrological indicators and understand your psychology better, go to VedicAstrology.com. And so you can see even this chart, Saturn is before the moon, Jupiter is after the moon. So that means a person would be conditioned for things that are serious, practical, time-tested. Jupiter after the moon shows to integrate their emotions. They will often fall back on higher teachings, higher wisdom, things like that. Mars in the 4th angle from the moon shows that inside to really anchor their psychology on things that are disciplined, powerful. Venus in the 7th house from the moon shows they get a lot of support from other people, those kinds of things. But of course, everything is in the interpretation, and also the signs and other things like that. So again, if that's interesting to you, that's fine. But anyway, I hope that you really got a lot out of this full moon in Aquarius update, as the full moon is reflecting back on those qualities of Leo. So you have a great day.